Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Tier List Madness. Today I'm going to be doing a quick review and ranking all of the songs in Undertow, the first studio album of my all-time favorite band, Tool. And in the end, I'll give my general conclusion and thoughts on the record, including where I would place the whole project on this tier list. Fun fact is, as I'm recording this video, it is October 1st, 2020, and that is actually the 27th anniversary of Onima's release, Tool's second studio album. I didn't know that until I was about to record this video, and then I saw a post on Reddit about it. Anyway, it would have been cool to record a tier listing of Onima today, but I really wanted to go in chronological order, so Undertow it is. So, Undertow was released in 1993, at a time where the focus was kind of beginning to shift from the metal sound of the 80s to a more commercial, popular hard rock sound. Even bands like Metallica, which was the ultimate thrash metal band that represented the metal scene throughout the 80s, at least on a cultural level, had just released their Black Album in 91, which I would say it's still metal, but it was definitely more heavy metal, maybe even hard rock sounding than the albums that came out in the 80s. The Seattle grunge bands were maybe at the height of their popularity, and I guess what I'm saying is, even though I think the metal scene was very much still alive and breathing at the time, it was difficult to see where the new trend was going to go. You had bands in the early 90s like Sepultura and Pantera who were starting to incorporate more groove metal sounds into their music. And so in that sense, I think Undertow was certainly a great album for the time it was released, being a breath of fresh air just for its originality and how different it was from everything else at the time. The best way to describe the genre of this album, I would say, is alternative metal, a little bit progressive, but not as much as Tool would later become known for. And the first track in the album, Intolerance, is, in my opinion, a phenomenal track with fantastic riffs and groove. It just hits so hard, and I think it's a great start to the album, and I think in a way represents the overall mood of the record, which is kind of a raw and dirty project in the best way possible, you know. Maynard's vocals are pretty amazing, and the way he transitions from being a little more sensitive and delicate with the way he sings during the first verse and how it evolves to a more desperate sound and just keeps escalating. You can really feel the anger and the emotion in his performance, certainly in the lyrics as well. For me, this is a legendary status. I think it's great. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. Prison Sex is a track that kind of had to grow on me with time. At first, I didn't think too much of it. I always liked it, but it wasn't a song that I listened to very often. That being said, I think it's one of the best songs in the album. Adam Jones's riffs are simple, yet catchy and just great. From the lyrical standpoint, I think it's a brilliant song about sexual abuse. It's really graphic and just fantastic writing on this one that really paints some vivid imagery. A dark song, a great song. I'm going to put this one on the must listen category. Now, Sober was actually the very first Tool song that I ever heard. It's the song that I have to thank for getting me into their music in the first place, as I assume for a lot of people as well. It's their most popular song of the record, one of their most popular songs in general to this day, and I think for good reason. Starting off with that fantastic bass line by former Tool bass player Paul D'Amour. I mean, just wow, you know, that da-dum, chicka da-dum. It's so simple, but it hits incredibly hard, and the best way that I can even attempt to describe not just the bass line, but the overall feeling of the song for me is just soul penetrating, if that makes any sense, and just overall, the sheer talent and creativity of all four members of the band really, really shines in this song. From the angry, haunting vocals by Maynard, the genius guitar playing by Adam Jones, and Danny Carey. I mean, the guy is now considered to be one of the best, if not the best, drummer rock has to offer. And it's just an amazing song, one of my personal favorites to this day. I have nothing bad to say about this song. It is legendary, for sure. Now, Bottom is a great song as well. It has some great riffs in both guitar and bass. It has Henry frickin' Rollins delivering an amazing monologue in the middle of the song, man. I mean, what more do you want? Seriously. Again, all over the place. I think all I can hear on this track is talent. It feels extremely raw and real. Dead inside. I just butchered that, but I think it's actually one of their most underrated songs. Certainly one of Tool's hardest hitting tracks ever. It's a must for me. I think it's just great. Okay, so now we get to a point in the record where just by looking at views on YouTube and reading some comments, stuff like that, and by talking to friends of mine who are into Tool, I feel the second half of the album doesn't get as much love and attention as it should. I literally have a friend who tells me when he listens to the record, he usually only listens to the first 3 or 4 tracks, and that's that. And while I think it's kind of understandable because I think the catchier songs are found in the first half of the record, I certainly think the second half has a lot to offer as well. So Crawl Away is, like I said, I think a very underrated song, and instrumentally it seems to me that it sounds a little more grungy while still maintaining that alternative metal, maybe a little progressive sound. I think it really works. The riffs here are pretty solid, maybe not as catchy or as memorable perhaps as the other songs on the record, but I think they're really good. Again, Maynard's vocals, especially towards the end of the song, are just incredible, to say the least. So I would put this in the very good category. Swamp Song opens up with a sweet bass line and is followed by Adam's aggressively delicious guitar tone. I think Danny really shines on this track, particularly on the breakdown. Really aggressive lyrics, great performances all around. A really catchy song, especially when it comes to the chorus. I think it's a really fun song overall. I really like it, and I'm going to put it in the very good category as well. Now, for the title track of the record, Undertow, which I think is a good track, I don't think it's all that great, but I really enjoy certain elements of it, like the change of pace during the middle portion of it, which goes into a slow but very, very heavy breakdown. The riffs by Adam feel tight and progressive. Maynard's vocals are really tied in thematically with the rest of the record, being really dark with a great performance. Overall, I think it's a good song. Don't really have much to say about it. I'll put it into the it's okay category. Some people are going to be mad at that, but that's just fine. It's just not my particular cup of tea, although I do like the song. 4 Degrees is an interesting song. I really like the opening guitar part. It sounds really different, almost Eastern somehow. Maynard lets out a huge scream, which is maybe the most impressive one in the entire album. Lyrically, I think it may be yet another song about anal sex. I read this theory online that the anus is 4 degrees warmer than the vagina, which I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes sense, and it wouldn't actually surprise me coming from Tool, So 4 Degrees is a very good track. Now, Flood is a really good song. It has like a really, really long instrumental introduction, and it almost feels like a song that kind of bridges the more mystical and complex elements of Tool's next record. The song kind of feels like it's telling you a story with the instruments even before the lyrics start. It's very distorted, pretty progressive. Maynard sounds absolutely amazing, and the lyrics, I think, are about changing your core beliefs, drowning the old part of yourself to come back renewed as a phoenix rises from the ashes. I think it's a very, very good song. And finally, Disgustipated. I have a pretty funny story about this song, but the very first time I listened to this whole album was a few years back. I was on a flight and I had taken a couple of weed edibles. So I fell asleep during the flight, but then we hit some turbulence and I woke up high as fuck? And this song was on. And it was a very, very interesting experience to say the least. And I thought it was amazing. Like, it was an amazing experience. But what do I actually think about this song after listening to it multiple times sober? If I'm being completely honest, I don't care that much about it. It's in the not for me category, if I'm being completely honest. Some people are going to be mad at that, but again, that's fine. This is just my opinion. I think they were going for something similar to a Third Eye from Anima or something like that to close the album with. Something long and epic, maybe even psychedelic. I can appreciate Maynard's televangelist impression and the band's sense of humor to include a track like this one in the record. There's a video where Maynard shoots a piano with a shotgun in the studio to create some sounds for this, and stuff like that is always appreciated. I think it has a funny message to vegans overall, life feeds on life, but then again, it's 15 minutes long, half of which are literally crickets, and I know that with headphones you can really tell the nuances that went into the production of this track, as well as the percussion. That's really interesting as well, but it's not for me, if I'm being totally honest. So yeah, those are all the tracks in Undertow. So where would I place this record overall? I think it's a solid, very, very good record. For Tool fans, I think it's more on the must-listen side of things. You may agree or disagree with that placement. That's totally fine. Again, this is just my opinion, and I still really, really enjoy this album. I listen to it often. Like I said, Tool is my favorite band ever, and it's interesting listening to it while taking into account Tool's later works, because they hadn't really incorporated many of those mystical, psychedelic elements yet, but it's still a very, very good record. Alright everyone, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, that's totally cool. I'm trying to figure out this whole YouTube thing as I go. And if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to start putting out videos like this one at the very least once a week. And in the next episode, I'm going to be covering the outstanding 1996 Tool record Anima. So stay tuned for that. Till next time, this is Tier List Madness.